Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the C-Man, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the C-Man's Cinema Sit-Down. Now, I'm going to be real with you. This should have been a fresh out the theater review. However, I was celebrating the holiday a little bit yesterday. I was hanging out with my friend and his pup, and I'm a big fan of his pup, and I was like there for an hour. I was like, shit, I gotta go to this movie, or I could go see a later one. I opted to see the later one, which was fine. I was awake, I was invested, but man, I came out of that movie theater and I was just like not ready to record it. And then my camera on me. I was pretty tired. I mean, that midnight screening of Super Mario took me out for like a week. I was catching up on sleep. So I got home last night. I got work today. I was like, I need to hit the hay, and we'll get up early and we'll talk about this movie. Because if you're sleeping on this movie, I didn't sleep on it. I just slept after it. But if you're sleeping on this movie, don't. Because this movie freaking rules. Specifically, if you are an Evil Dead fan, a hardcore horror fan, or a very gory horror fan. The three things that make all Sam Raimi and Evil Dead things great. They're all here, and if that's not your cup of tea, I would say avoid this movie. However, if you do fall into those other three categories, go see this movie immediately because it freaking rocked. What am I talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair? Take a seat. We are getting ready to dive in, spoiler-free, into Evil Dead Rise. And like I said, this is a massive W for Evil Dead fans, for hardcore horror fans, for really gory horror fans. This is one of those where 2013, we got like a reboot, and it was dope, man. Because the thing with Sam Raimi, and one of the things that I love about his horror in particular, is he knows how to balance tone with really, really dark, demented stuff, and then stuff that will make you laugh out loud. And the combination of those two, a lot of times, creates a very unique experience, something that is very much Sam Raimi. And 2013 really kind of ignored most of the gag and funny bits, and really just leaned into the hardcore horror elements of Evil Dead, and that was awesome. However, I likes my Evil Dead a little bit funny. And I'm not going to say that this movie is funny. It definitely isn't carrying that, the little bit that you get in Evil Dead 2 is kind of Bruce Campbell starts to dial it up. And then what we've come to expect from Ash in all of these movies when you start with Army of Darkness. I mean, that movie is so funny and absurd. My dad will actually enjoy watching that, where he will not enjoy watching the first two Evil Dead movies. And then if you look at Ash versus the Evil Dead, obviously you're just leaning on Bruce Campbell and dialing up the gore and the absurdity of the things that are going on in this world. And that's the stuff that I think Lee Cronin really, really nailed. And while I don't think he's going into a laugh-out-loud, dark, satirical zones, places that Raimi will play in, his gags in this movie are so classic. Some of them might be a little bit more up the horror end, but if you know what you're watching as an Evil Dead fan, you're gonna just have moments where you smile and go, Sam Raimi would have loved that. If he was on set, he was geeking out, or he maybe had a little something to do there. There's enough of the Raimi magic feel coming out of this that I would say Evil Dead Rise is not just a movie that comes from that original trilogy, which writer-director Lee Cronin has said, right? This is a sequel to the original trilogy. But this feels like it was a spiritual relative or sibling, right? This comes from that same DNA. And Cronin really does understand both the horror and the gags. And the mixing of the two here really, really work. And he gives you stuff I haven't even seen in Evil Dead movies. And it's really a nice added chapter. And the other thing for me going into the film, when I had heard that, from his point of view, this is more of a sequel from the original trilogy, I was like, ooh, I'm fascinated to find out, when does it take place? How does it happen? Because there's a period of time in there where, maybe you could work some things. And what's neat is Cronin adds an element, adds a layer to the Evil Dead history that allows you to kind of open this world up a little bit. This is a movie that completely functions in its own lane. While it has wonderful callbacks, there's lots of Easter egg drops. Like I said, if you're an Evil Dead fan, you're just going to be sitting here going, dude, this guy gets it, man. It's like the freaking Radio Silence guys with Scream. Cronin understands this world, and he understands how to blend horror and dark satire and comedy. And I say that Again, not because this movie is laugh out loud funny, but there are kind of underlying satirical humor moments that come with all the gags that are laid into the movie. And that's the stuff that really hits the nail on the head for me. And I love the fact that, like, with what he adds to the story, this world can get a little bit bigger. And after the South by Southwest premiere, Bruce Campbell revealed to the world that Sam Raimi had hit him up and was like, time to hit the gym, lard ass. and kind of had like a Photoshop version of the original Evil Dead poster with a different actor. That actor I don't believe is in this movie, but it was one of these things where it was like, oh man, like this movie has maybe fired Raimi up where he wants to get back behind the camera with Bruce Campbell. And this and like Raimi's world, they can coexist and live together. And that's the cool thing that I thought Cronin brought from a story standpoint. Like from a world building element, you can go into a sequel that brings Ash back in and it can make total sense, and you could actually set yourself up for a new trilogy. And in my head, I'd love to see Raimi do 2 and then move back to producer and let Cronin do the 3rd one in these movies if you went down that route. But that's the thing that's really neat, is that what Cronin gives you kind of opens up that lane where you could do something like that. And then when it comes to the movie in and of itself, I love how Cronin handles the evil. I love this family that he has developed, and I love the idea of the evil coming out of the woods and into the city, and specifically being in an apartment building. In this movie, because of an earthquake, the elevator ain't working, the stairs are kind of broken, so everybody that is on this floor of this apartment are kind of trapped. And it becomes a lot of fun to play with because you're kind of very similar to being in the cabin. You're in a small localized area that has different places that you can go, and you know, it takes a little bit. I'll give Cronin a lot of credit. He starts this thing with a phenomenal opening scene. Then he takes his time and builds this world and this family and this group of characters out a little bit before the evil gets there. And you know, considering what we see in the trailers, you maybe could have gotten to the evil a little bit faster. However, I think the grounded nature and world building that you get from Cronin in the first act really sets up a solid entry for evil in the second act and delivers a third act that, for me personally, is absolute perfection in the realm of Evil Dead. It brings all the absolutely terrifying horror that you want from the evil. It brings some phenomenal... I mean, my favorite gags in the movie come in the third act, and it dials up all that gore, man. And I tell you, the spiral into madness that you go down in this movie really had a similar feeling to the spiral of madness that you go down in Raimi's movies. And that's the thing that I really loved. And then Cronin found a way to use the Deadites to create a new character. This mommy is freaking epic. Like, I could watch Mommy Deadite just rule the world. Honest to God. Like, that's a good shift into the cast, where Alyssa Sutherland as Ellie, who plays Mommy, man, it's one of those characters that's just like pitch perfect, right? Like, she's not your Ash, but she's the character that, like, because of that first act world building and grounded kind of storytelling, you attach yourself to Ellie in a way where it's like you understand who this woman is and you understand how much it sucks that evil got her. And watching how evil uses Ellie, and what's nice is, like, she ain't playing around. Like, once Mommy shows up, the horror starts, and that's the thing that I love, is like once we kick into the evil, it runs. And Alyssa Sutherland is absolutely remarkable. She's such a phenomenal opposite to her sister Beth, who's played by Lily Sullivan, and who's kind of like our Ash here. And watching the two of them go at it, whether it's the psychological stuff that evil will try to mess with you, or it's the just downright horror stuff. The way that Sutherland is able to move, I don't know if she's like a contortionist, but like the things that she's doing and what she's able to do expression-wise. That's the thing I love about Mommy, is Mommy's face. Man, you can tell when she gonna do some effed up shit. And it is always super enjoyable. And then when you're talking about Lily Sullivan, who's playing Beth, her sister, I really do see a lot of parallels to Ash. And what was cool is as you're going, right, like as you're building, I'm not necessarily thinking about it that way. But then you get into the second act, and then you get into the third act, and you're like, oh my gosh, you can see how it's starting to form. And like then you're like, oh man, I'm waiting for this. And then there it is. Yes, let's go. Let's do this. Let's do that. And I really loved what Sullivan brought. Like she is a final girl, a leading lady. And it's funny because Bruce Campbell gets brought up, and like there aren't a lot of final guys in horror. And I think Lily Sullivan is a phenomenal final girl, but she is also a phenomenal counter to Ash. And I love what drives her, how tough she is, and like how her life and influences and where she comes from. Like I said, that first act and building out these characters really kind of set up somebody that you are so down to ride with and is so easy to root for. And we've seen it in the trailers. We've seen her covered in the blood. Some of the visual shots that Cronin gives you of her are just, oh man, it made me so happy. And I just sat there going, I need Beth and I need Ash in the same place at the same time, because that would be a hell of a good time. Now, outside of your two main leads, the rest of the family here, I also really, really enjoy. Gabrielle Eccles, who plays middle child Bridget, Morgan Davies, who plays the eldest brother Danny, and Nell Fisher, who plays the youngest, little Cassie. They're great, man. They feel like a family. You really feel for them as brothers and sisters. And then as the evil starts to get in there and mess with things, your heart breaks for both the characters who are being infected and the characters that are having to witness what's going on. Specifically Cassie. I mean, Cassie is a little girl. And I tell you, Nell Fisher, man, I just loved this little girl right from jump. She's so charming, and she's got just a presence on screen that you just kind of, it pulls you in. And again, another easy person to root for. And Nell's perspective throughout the movie is one of the more fascinating ones, and also involves another character by the name of Stephanie. Let me tell you, when you get to know about Stephanie, you're going to be so... It's probably my favorite thing in the entire movie, and that plays into some of the gags that Cronin pulls that really, really work. But I love this family dynamic, and like I said, as you see the evil start to tear them apart, you really feel for both the characters that are being infected by evil and taken over, and the characters that are left behind. Now, outside of that, you round the cast out with the apartment dwellers, Mark Mitchinson, Ty Wano, Jaden Daniels, and Billy Reynolds McCarthy. All four of them are kind of, they pop up. They have Reynolds McCarthy and Wano are kind of like a pair of brothers. It looks like they pop up like occasionally here and there. Jaden Daniels, I really dig. He's a neighbor that like when this earthquake thing happens is like right there down to kind of help out. And same goes with Mark Mitchinson, who's kind of like the super, like on the floor. And, they're very, very minimal roles, but all of them make a little bit of a pop, specifically Mitchinson and Daniels. And Daniels is one of those where it's like you get a pop with him early, and then I was like, I'm just waiting for it. And when it came back around toward the end of the movie, I was like, nice. And that's the thing where the win here is this perfect third act. It does everything you want an Evil Dead movie to do. It delivers on the horror. It delivers on everything that the movie has built. Like, this is one of these, like, 3-act movies where, and it's been a while since I've really seen the first act build you into the second act, which supports it, and then just builds everything to land this massive third act. And yeah, I mean, the performances here are great. There is an opening sequence that involves some other actors that I really, really thoroughly enjoyed. Mirabai Pace and Anna Marie Thomas get some real fun stuff early, and then you get a nice little drop in of Richard Crouchley. But what's cool is like you've got this cast, and everybody here is great. And then when you just look at all the other technical stuff, I think the score really does enhance what you're doing as far as driving the movie, and the sound design in general in this is really, really strong. I really enjoyed like just the different noises and things that are going on as you hear things happening, because there's times where evil is separated from our characters and you're hearing things, you're seeing, and just the sound design is exquisite here. And the other thing that I love too is the practical effects and the visual effects. I mean, anytime you're dialing up the amount of gore that you're going to get in this movie, it pays to have practical effects that look really good. And then there's obviously some, digital visual effects that are kind of put in here, but all of it blends really well. Where what you're looking at on screen, you're just like, God, I could live in this world all day. And that's the other thing too, is Cronin keeps this thing super tight. It's like 90 minutes, really well paced. You're in and out. And like I said, it's that natural build where like you're on the roller coaster. And once it starts going, you're on for a ride that, for an Evil Dead fan, was absolutely spectacular. So I'm going to shut up. I think I've said all the spoiler-free things I can say about the Evil Dead Rise. I loved this freaking movie. So let's get the C-Maniacs up. Like I said, Cronin really is someone very similar to Radio Silence with Scream. You can tell he's a fan, you can tell he understands this material, and you can understand and tell that he knows how to make this stuff work, even though it's not Raimi behind the camera. I think having Campbell and Raimi as producers, as always, really helps, and like I said, the gags that Cronin mixes in with the hardcore horror really work in a way where I was like, I could understand how this movie could fire Sam Raimi up. You look at everything else that Cronin does in the movie, from staging to effects to the horror to just making evil really work and building characters that are unique and interesting. I just love everything that he does here. He really understands this world. And then our characters are great, specifically Alyssa Sutherland, Lily Sullivan, Alyssa Sutherland, Lily Sullivan, Ellie and Beth, and then, of course, Nell Fisher, who plays Cassie. They're my big three. But everybody that's here does a great job. Technically, this thing is tight. It is sound. This is just a good movie. And then if you're a horror fan, like, this is a movie that you can enjoy. If you're not, I'd say stay away from this one because it leans into those things that we talked about. But for the C-Man, who is a hardcore horror, a hardcore gore, and a big old Evil Dead fan, this is a big old massive success. 4.5 out of 5 C-Maniacs. I would say this is one of the best Evil Deads that we have gotten since the original. And I am excited. Like, Cronin has, I think, reinvigorated this franchise where you can see some cool collaborations with him, Raimi, and Campbell if they go that route. And if they don't go that route and we leave Ash alone, I think Cronin could deliver a trilogy all on his own. And what he's built with Beth as kind of like your Ash-type lead, there's stuff to be done here. So I'm loving the Evil Dead. The question is, what about you, man? How big of an Evil Dead fan are you? Have you watched all the material? I really, literally, like, right before the movie, I was like, let me rewatch everything, dude. And I tell you, it's beneficial to rewatch everything because there are lots of nods. But if you're an Evil Dead fan, how big of a fan are you? How excited are you for this movie? If you haven't seen it, when are you going to see it? Are you going to wait for streaming? Are you going right to the theater? If you have seen it, how much fun did you have with this? Does it feel like it is kin to that original trilogy? Do you think it is a wonderful entry, or do you have issues with this one? Anything you got on Evil Dead Rise, good, bad, indifferent, put it down below in the comments section. Look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with C-Man anytime we're talking movies, TV, trailer, reactions, you just want to show a little love and support because, well, you haven't yet. Well, hey, easiest way to do that is come join C-Maniac Nation. All you got to do is jump over there, hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell if you want those alerts. And until next time, for the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down, I've been the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace. Oh, you guys are still here. You snuck up on me. You must be looking for more of this guy. Well, I got 2 video options for you, man. Right up here and right over here. And if you want all those C-Man goodies, well, hey, come join the squad right on over there, and I'll catch you on the next one.